Hey, Cut the Shit listeners. You can find every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Go check us out. Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Cut the Shit, a podcast series that aims to take a closer look at the impact of the IT industry, both the good and the bad. Cut the Shit is brought to you by Plow Networks, a managed IT services company based just outside Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Brian Link, COO here at Plow, and I'll be your host for this series. I'll ask questions, and with the help of our guests, try to dig deep on some of the key challenges we all face dealing with IT. So with that, let's cut the shit and get started. Gents, welcome back to Cut the Shit After Hours. It's been a while.
It has.
If you look around,
it's a new year.
It's a new year. We haven't done this in 2025 yet. We got ourselves a new setting. I'd like to thank our crack producing team for putting this together. It's pretty cool. It's hard to believe. The viewers can't see what's behind the lights, and it doesn't look nearly as cool as this little setup. So that's
the shit's been cut,
and it's actually after hours. We got ourselves a drink,
a little bourbon.
Cheers to you too.
Cheers,
appreciate
friends.
Appreciate you being here with me today. This will be fun as always. We got a little bit. We got a couple topics to talk about. We're going to bounce around a bit. We always start with something. Kind of a little warm up, get us going,
please.
And it's March. And we're recording about a week before this is going to come out. So
March Madness.
Late March. So yeah, March Madness, spring break just happened for most people. I think, some people do around Easter, so maybe a little later for some people, but mostly it's about this time, certainly for college. So I thought it would be fun since the weather's getting a little warmer outside and it's spring break time that maybe we do a little walk down spring break memory lane. Ooh. Now, suitable for work. We maybe earlier spring breaks than maybe later in college, but we got to be careful. But I thought it might be fun to think a little bit about that. So, and you can go to being parents, right? As now that we're all really old, we've done lots of different kinds of spring breaks. Yeah. So, start first simple question: what was your best? What's been your best spring break trip? Cameron, you go first.
Well, thanks for picking me first. I was thinking, I took my kids to Europe one year, and we bounced around over the course of a week. Just like every day or two, we were in someplace different. Forgot my toiletries in one country. We packed for spring weather, forgetting that in Central Europe at that time of year, it could be winter. Right. And so we landed, it was snowing, and so we wore lots of layers. But it was a good time. We had a lot of fun with that.
Gotcha.
It wasn't a rowdy story, no, but yeah, it was a good time. That was probably my most memorable.
So mine's interesting because I'm thinking about it right now. We don't really ever get a spring break. That's not what we do.
I mean, my story of spring break is I didn't have spring break from high school through college all the way through because of sports. We never got to do anything.
But you know what we did have? We had a single day.
Well, yes.
In Daytona.
Yes, we did.
And it wasn't even a full day.
Yes, it was more like 4 hours.
Maybe 4 hours turned into.
Yeah, we got the most out of that 4 hours.
I mean,
some more than others.
Let it have it,
dude. It was. It's one for the books.
Yeah, that's a funny story
for sure.
Not necessarily for this podcast, but that's a funny story.
I mean, at a high level, our coach felt bad about taking us to.
We went to Jacksonville,
Southwest Missouri, and.
The year before. We went.
Where did we end up?
We went to all the way to Wichita State.
Play
Those
Wichita
who
State.
don't know, these guys played baseball together in college.
Sorry.
To give you some context.
Right.
And it was freezing. We played in the snow. It was a brutal trip. Everything about it was brutal.
That was my sophomore year, your freshman year, and we were terrible. That made it even worse.
It did make it worse. He made us run after losing 18-1 to a team that eventually I think might have won the World Series.
Well, they were in the top 10
at least the year before.
Yeah, they were a lot better than us. Yeah.
So I got to give him credit. He's like, we're going to go do something warmer, and we went to Jacksonville. And as a part of the Jacksonville little tournament we're in, we had a day off, and he's like, I'm going to give these guys some fun, and I'm going to take them down to Daytona. And we went to Daytona for 5 hours.
Yeah, we got there at 11 and had to be back on the bus at 4.
When I tell you,
and this is literally like letting animals out of a cage to go run around and see if they can kill something.
Yeah, just go get it.
That's what it
was. You got 5 hours to make it happen, Captain.
Yeah,
it was insane.
How many people? 3 didn't make it back.
Three didn't even come back.
Three didn't make it to the bus.
One told me he wasn't coming back, and he was a student. He was actually a grad assistant coach.
Yeah,
I'm just not.
I'm not going back. Yeah. I'll deal with it tomorrow.
Yep.
So we had some of that.
Daytona's been known to get
That's probably my funniest
that's
spring
an
break
incredible
memory
story.
for sure. Just because I was like,
Somebody we know really, really well made it back with one flip flop. Maybe that person's significant other might work here, and he was so off balance because he had one flip flop.
He did make it back though, but barely.
that flip.
But he couldn't stand.
I could see that.
But yeah, all of our spring breaks have been that I can remember. We might have done some before the boys started playing stuff, but even then, like we went right on into baseball and did baseball from the time they were just little. So
Well, how was last? You just did a staycation.
I did a staycation.
How did it go?
It went great. It was weird. It was weird, like just being home. But both the boys were in, and
Did y'all go do some stuff? What'd y'all do?
We played around. Went to the farm a couple different occasions. Experimented with getting some feeders out and doing some things, trying to get ready for turkey season. But I worked out with them on several occasions.
How'd that treat you?
Wasn't able to move.
Yeah, I was gonna say not well.
Couple consecutive days. Got into something yesterday apparently following their plan. But yeah, we just chilled. Creed was gone for 4 of the days. She came back on Friday, so then we were all together Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which is cool. Yeah,
cool. Yeah,
was
I'm
definitely
kind of
weird
like
not doing
like Cameron. The one memorable spring break trip for me. We took Emma and Jackson to London the spring break before she graduated from high school. It was kind of her graduation.
That's cool.
Yeah. And that was a lot of fun. They had both done some traveling, so it wasn't like the first time they'd ever done that, but it was just cool. They were really into the same, not into the same things we're in. That's exaggeration. But we did all the things we did together. They were excited about. Whereas, when you take younger kids, they're oftentimes excited, but you have that up and down,
sure.
of stuff. And we didn't have any of that, and it was a lot of fun. And we had great weather, which you go to London in March, you don't know what you're going to get. Well, anytime really, but particularly
that's
then.
so much for you.
So we got lucky there.
You got a problem?
No, I thought you had a green sweater on.
I did.
For just a second,
We had to.
And you were just blending.
We have to talk about this because I don't know that this happens anymore. But when we were younger, going on spring break, one of the most important things about going on spring break was getting something from the place you went and bringing it back, whether that was a T-shirt, a hat, some sunglasses, some stupid shot glass, something. Right. So what do you get? I have a very specific memory of my favorite spring break kind of swag or whatever that I brought back from when I was young. Do y'all have anything like that?
Are you sure it was spring break, not summer break? Because I thought we got like a day. Like I thought back then we only got like a Thursday, Friday, or a Friday, Monday, or something.
The age group this is me like 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade.
Yeah.
I was at FRA, so we had a full week.
Okay.
And my dad was a baseball coach, and he always took the baseball.
School guy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my dad was a teacher. Yeah, you're right. That's why, because we were real rich. But he always took the team to Panama City to play baseball because he had new coaches and stuff down there. So I always went. So that's my
because you're from. That's where you're from.
Well, no, we lived there for 3 years.
Okay.
But before moving back here,
Gotcha.
I'm from here. But
that just means you're from there.
I thought you spent more time down there.
No, it was only 3 years.
Okay.
But Dad had friends, so he tried to go down there and play. It was warmer.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was freaking cold. It kind of depended. But I have a very specific memory of a
Well, what'd you get? What'd you bring?
long sleeve Panama Jack T-shirt.
That's pretty smooth.
Those were cool.
Yeah, had the name down the sleeve
was
with the logo. Yeah, that's a very specific memory.
That's
and
I was a big
everybody
fan of
came
those.
like not everybody, but that was kind of a thing was to come
that
back from
jams.
Yes,
Would you wear jams?
100%.
Do our producers have any idea what a Panama Jack T-shirt
No,
is?
why
Is there
would
any
they?
chance
They're
in the
25. They don't know what that is. Of course they don't. Yeah.
They were
realize-
freaking cool, man.
You realize people 10 years younger than you don't know what the hell you're talking about, let alone
That's
20-something.
I mean, that was a thing then, right? Because
Jams
remember, you couldn't take
Converse.
pictures. There was no social media, so the only way you could prove to anybody that you went anywhere. That's why Hard Rock
That's a
Cafe
great
T-shirts
point. I
were
forgot
popular.
about that.
Is because it meant you went there, London or New York or Rome or wherever. Because you couldn't go
Second
online
Avenue,
and buy one.
probably.
Now it doesn't mean anything, but it did then.
Yeah, you're right. Good
point.
Yeah, that's cool. I don't.
Did you bring anything home? STDs?
I mean, you mentioned airbrush T-shirts. They were a
They
thing.
were a
cool.
thing.
They
I
were
mean,
shit.
they were,
Yeah, it was.
I don't remember ever having one, but I know they
I don't
were,
know why they were cool.
They were
They're very ugly, but
so
they
ugly.
were
I mean,
cool back
you
in
get
the
those in Gatlinburg even.
Well, of course. Well, that makes sense.
You can also jump
Yeah.
cars in Gatlinburg.
Yeah, you
Yes,
should.
you can. That's true.
I brought home a bunch of shells. As if
I think I
couldn't
brought
get
home-
shells
for
from
sure brought home
somewhere. I
shells.
remember doing that, but yeah.
I came from a divorce setting, so I feel like that if whichever one I went with, I brought something back for the other one, but it was probably something really simple like shells or
relatively benign. Yeah.
All right. Well, we've probably beat this dead horse, but that was fun. It's fun
Yeah,
to
that was
walk down
good.
memory
I love
lane.
the thought of the Panama Jack shirt.
Let's transition to something a little more relevant to the audience besides what T-shirts I liked when I
think
was
it's pretty
11.
relevant.
We should next after hours. We should all three wear Panama Jack shirts.
And
I might try to see if I can find one. If I do, I'm gonna wear it.
you
next
certainly
time I
find
the
one.
office.
Yeah.
So.
There's a faction of people out there that think old shit's cool.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
They remember they had the light, and a lot of times that felt like it was like a light pink look.
Oh,
or
they had
it was a
all
real light
pastels.
blue.
The
Yeah,
pale
all pastels.
yellow.
Yeah,
Mine was it was that sort of peachy orange.
Yeah, that's a
with
cool
blue.
one.
That was the
Blue
that
down the
was,
sleeve.
Yep,
It's legit.
That's very 80s, man. It's very 80s. All right, so let's talk business reviews. I think we might have talked about this once upon a time. It's been a while.
We touched on it.
But we've been talking about it so much internally that I felt like it made sense for us to talk about it in the context of, like, let's help, because again, most of the people who listen to this are either, current clients, prospects, people that we might work with, right?
Yeah.
I mean, some other MSPs, but I don't listen to other MSPs things. I don't know why they would listen to ours. Mostly, potential people who work with us. So this is a great opportunity for us to sort of explain to them, why do we do this? Why do we think it matters? And so let's start there, and then we'll kind of get into, I want to cover, what are expectations? What should they expect to get from us on this? And what do we expect to get from them, right? This is there's some this should be mutually beneficial, right? We're not going to waste somebody's time. And it's not a sales call. It's not like we're trying to show up and open up the coat and say, look at all we've got, right? These are people we already work with. So let's start with, what are they and why do they matter? And Brian, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I think that. Thanks, Brian. I will. I think where they matter. I think anytime you can do something relationship building, it's important, right? And these are customers that either are already spending a lot of money with you today, or have the opportunity to do so. I think it's because it's not a sales call in a sense that there's something been identified necessarily that we're there to talk about,
right.
Fixing
That's what I mean.
This thing.
It doesn't mean
today.
something might come out of that something wouldn't come out of it like,
does.
hey, there's new stuff that they may have that they might need.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's not the reason for the meeting.
Right.
It's not the primary purpose. It's not we're coming to talk about something that some new thing.
Yeah. Not to get in the weeds, but it's one of those things that I think it obviously it presents opportunity on the relationship side, but it's like there's a scorecard effect to it, right? If done right. I mean, How are we doing? How are we supporting you? This is what, these are the data points that we have, and these are the things that are important to you, and we want to share those things with you.
Yeah, and I think that feedback, it's not always easy to get it, right?
Yeah.
Because again, the relationships we have, right? We interact with a variety of different people at a client. It's not always just one person, right? There's a variety of different people, and so.
Sure.
Can we get, I think clients sometimes think we get a lot, we know a lot about what they think about us.
Yeah.
And that's not true. Like, we don't always know. I mean, we've all lost clients before where we didn't realize they were thinking about something else, right? And they are like, well, you didn't know we were unhappy? And it's like, no, we didn't, right? And some of that's on you to not ask, but like, it's not that easy always to get feedback.
Yeah, you're right. And getting multiple people involved for whatever reason, like reflecting to one just a few weeks ago, where there were probably 15 people in the room, between the two organizations. Again, back to when it's more of a sales call, there's a very particular person that's interested in the discussion, right? There's not 5, 6, 7 of these people. So it's always good getting the collective group together and having that kind of conversation. And then really getting interactive. I mean, one of the things that I always enjoy is truly learning, where are we doing well? Where are areas of improvement for us? How can we improve? Sometimes that is, that turns into a discussion of, setting better expectations as to what we're supposed to be doing to begin with. And there's not really an area to improve outside of communication.
Yeah.
Because we're amazing.
Yeah, because we're amazing. That's
Yeah,
what
of
I was
course.
gonna say. And we always want to walk out understanding that we're amazing.
I mean, we want to confirm that, right? Yeah. Not understand, confirm.
If I can expand on a little bit of that.
can't.
Yeah, I want to say
No, you can't.
I want to hang on before you go, because I think Brian has identified one key aspect or one key goal from a business review, right? Which is, how are we doing? We want to be able to get some
100% want
feedback
that.
and have an understanding, at level setting around that. Are there? It's always areas of improvement. Can we get some feedback on that? Where are things going well and where are they not? Right. So that's one. And I think I know where you're going. So I'm gonna let you go, because I think you want to take it to the
right.
You better go there.
the next piece.
No pressure.
Clients might be surprised to find that we make significant investment in terms of time and effort into them. And when you're dealing with Brian's point of dealing with, let's say, over the course of 6 meetings, 6 different, very discrete and distinct audiences, sometimes the true north gets lost in there. And so, I think it's not that indifferent from a business process, a business. Jesus Christ, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a review of where you're at, business planning. Business planning exercise.
Okay.
Way to pull it that.
Good job.
Listen, I was really struggling. Thanks, guys. I appreciate the support. It was business planning process.
Where did this guy come from?
Yeah, no, right? Business.
Have another drink. Maybe that'll help.
Business planning review process.
now it's ready.
Business planning review process. It's not that different from that, in that you're trying to establish where are we at, what's changed, where are we headed, and believe it or not, oftentimes it's the first time that maybe certain parties in the room, even within their own organization, are hearing things, and you've got different tiers of leadership in there where
That's a good point.
it does get folks on the same page, whether even it involves us or not. I mean, we've got a customer that we.
If they're talking across to each other, that's maybe not a bad thing at all.
Sometimes it's the first time it's happened in a while. So I know we've got a client that we sat down and left a business review where maybe there were 25 things, of which 7 of them involved us, and the rest of them did not. But it was important to the customer, and I appreciated this from their standpoint, is it may not directly involve us, but it will indirectly affect us in our projects and our timelines and our priorities and so on. And frankly, some of that stuff has literally nothing to even do with IT, but what we're learning about gives us contextual relevance to the things that we're prioritizing. And like I said, we make a significant investment in these customers, and if we see that, hey, look, I'm putting, 3 hours a week of so-and-so's time on it, and that's really, something I thought was important, but now it's associated with an irrelevant or insignificant task or effort, well, we can shift that around, maybe pour a little more resource into something that matters. And it's not like you're having to compete on those agendas. You've got a singular agenda or, theme as you leave that meeting. And you know what? Sometimes it takes 90 days, and guess what? You're back in front of them again, and off you go.
Yeah, and we can talk. We can call them quarterly business reviews. Sometimes that makes sense. Sometimes it's maybe more frequent depending on what's going on.
Right.
Although usually that's more project specific. Very often, usually 30 days that's a pretty tight timeline for us. Quarterly is usually about the most. But sometimes it's maybe just twice a year, or it could even just be once a year, depending on the nature of the environment and sort of how dynamic what's happening going on inside the customer.
We have some customers that have explosive growth, right? They're in the middle of acquisition, or doing acquisitions, they're in the middle of doing massive refreshes, and a quarterly review, so much changes in 90 days. Right. So for those, it's almost weekly, bi-weekly, and it's the same process, just in a condensed format. Right. And you're right, others, once a year is good enough. So
and I think there's a lot that's incumbent about asking good questions. I mean, for sure. I think both of what you guys just said, our job in those meetings is to ask good questions, right? And if we come back to what we say we're all about, right? We're business people who happen to do technology, right? I mean, then we damn sure better be able to ask good questions. And those questions might not, they end up at technology, but that doesn't mean they start there.
I don't think we say that enough. I don't think we express that enough.
I think it's one of those things that it's easy to take it for granted.
Yeah.
But it is something we need to talk more about, and more internally and externally, right?
Yeah,
and if our folks are not business, if they can't talk business, we probably need to do some work there.
Yeah. I mean, we are technologists, and we have some really
we gotta have great technology. I mean, it doesn't make you can't show up and be like, well, I'm a really good business person and I know a little bit about technology. That's not. No one's going to pay us for that. That's not what I mean.
Especially if you say it the way you just said it.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Or if
I can't remember,
it was great.
If I can't
remember business process.
He can't remember. See, he just said business process instead of business planning. He clearly can't remember it. So
something else I want to add is I think it is important for us to help them understand the things. That was great. Help them understand the things that we're doing too, because We don't do a good job.
And again,
sometimes
to your point,
with the press,
especially for our broad, clients where we're doing multiple things.
Yeah.
It's easy to. I mean, even inside a client, I think for stuff to not have visibility. I mean, we talk all the time about, being the offensive lineman of the business, and if you're doing things right, it's not visible. How do we create visibility? We talk about that, but it's hard to. It's hard
they
to
don't
see
think we're doing anything. It's like whoa.
Right.
Look at all the things you got built in.
The
It's easy to
objective
do
is
that.
to walk out with platitudes and being patted on the back about how awesome we are. I know that's that's our goal. Just don't forget though, like our customers, we also bring things to them that our other clients are doing. I mean, not that we have all the answers, but some of our other clients.
As we should.
I'm saying it's not a competitive technology thing where it's like, well, Bob's doing this and
No,
Bill's doing
but
that.
hey,
but it's
somebody else is doing this.
There's
Hey,
a
maybe
lot
you
of
guys should think
problems.
about this. This is a pretty good idea.
Even non-adjacent industries, things that are truly have nothing to do with each other. We've got hospitals and we've got logistics transportation companies, but there are common themes or underlying elements to some of the problems that they're dealing with, and some of them have creative solutions, and we frankly we're just privy to them.
Yeah, I mean, whether that's asset management or security, there's a variety of things that are they're not really in. I mean, they may have some aspects of them at the kind of at the edge that are industry specific, but in general, I mean, identity and access management is identity and access management. It doesn't really matter because you're using the same tool set.
Well, and there's universal or fundamental componentry within all businesses, checkbook, GLAR,
Right.
There's HR stuff, and we've got a lot of clients that are having questions about, hey, how can we leverage AI? That's a great place to say, well, just because a hospital is using AI in their HR department doesn't mean that another organization can't leverage the same sort of fundamental technologies, and so
precisely,
we see some of that stuff comes about. During those business reviews. So
let's just kind of wrap this up a little. Let's talk a little bit about expectations. What should clients, whether they're our clients or clients of somebody else, or even if they have their own internal IT department, what should their expectations be from kind of a regular business review with their technology providers? What would we recommend if just somebody showed up and said, hey, my IT people are coming to do a business review. What should I get from those folks?
Yeah.
What would you tell them?
I think that it depends on where they are in the relationship to begin with. I think in a perfect world, because I wanted to circle back to that, I think in a perfect world, there'd be a business planning session that has taken place.
Somewhere in there should have started that.
And typically those take place, if done correctly, they're done September, October of the year, right? So we're into Q3, very first part of Q4 at the latest.
Right.
And that's an opportunity to really talk about, what's going on. It's kind of like, wealth management, having a conversation, with the wealth manager, like, what are we going to do different this year? What do we anticipate? What's coming? What projects are there? And that way you can get those things out in the open.
Right. If any big goals change, so that we cascades down.
What are the pressures? What are the business drivers? Like, and going back to all those different things to try to set up what's going to take place in the year. So then once you get into the year, those business reviews are everything we've already talked about, right? From a measurement perspective, relationship building, all those different things. But at the same time, it's where are we with the project load? Where are we with the things that we set out, to accomplish in October of the given year? And how are we measuring against those things? Because as your point, earlier, things change. Cameron talks about these companies that, some of our customers that are heavy acquisition, they can have the best plan in the world in October of the previous year, the preceding year, and get into February, and all bets are off and everything's changed. Yeah. So I think you've got to be involved. So, I think that you should go into those meetings ready to share what you're doing from a business perspective with an expectation that your provider, your partner is going to bring, things that are going to help you solve the things you're going to run into.
I mean, that's a good point. You brought in sort of the what should the client do, not just what should they expect from the provider, but what should they bring, and that's the ability and the ability to articulate, hey, here's where we are as a business, and here's where we're trying to go, right? Even if that's at a higher level, like, again, abstracting away from the technology piece, like, where's the company trying to go? What are y'all trying to do? And maybe maybe it's down to a 1, 3, and 5 year. Maybe it's more just general, like, we're trying to get better in these areas. Yeah. Like our CEO's talking a lot about X or Y, and it's like, okay, well, let's talk about maybe how that translates into some IT initiatives, right, around the stuff that you want to do. Maybe we're doing some of it, maybe we're not, but at least it's on the table to talk about, right? For sure.
Think about an example of, the behavior that gets driven. Somebody has a breach or a ransomware event in their vertical, how that shakes that vertical up.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden,
it becomes a big issue.
This wasn't important.
Yeah.
MFA wasn't important. Conditional access, all these different things weren't important. And now they are all the CEOs talking about. And the CEO doesn't really even know how to truly articulate that. It's like, go fix it. Just
I don't want that to
stuff.
happen again is what that means. That was awful.
Exactly.
I don't want to do that again.
We can't do it.
Yeah.
We don't want to be a part of that.
Well, I get questions a lot from CIOs. It's like, hey, did you hear about such and such that happened at wherever, or what's going on with? Have you heard anything about this?
Yeah.
And I mean, I think those customers want to leave with clarity, understanding, whether that be around risk or whether it be in resources or timing or what have you. But then the other piece is, having some kind of again, clarity around what they're up to, where they're headed.
Well, and clarity's gotten thrown around a couple of times, and so I do want to sort of drill down a little bit on that to say, what from client expectations and sort of how we think about it. We should be documenting like the nature of these conversations, right, and being able to share back with the client. Hey, here's what we heard.
For sure.
Right? Here are the broader goals, and here's how we're translating that into sort of a takeaway for things we want to focus on. It could be as specific as a bullet point list of here's the 7 things that we talked about that we're collectively working on, and here are the names by them, and maybe even some dates for when we could expect follow-up. It could be that specific, or it could be here's what we'd like to see happen. We want to focus on these 3 things over the next 12 months based on where we are today, right? Yep. There's the old Dwight Eisenhower, plans are useless, planning is essential. I think there's a lot to that. I think keeping that in front of our clients to recommend, they understand like, we don't know it's to your point, if it's October of 2024, we don't know what October 2025 is going to look like. A lot could change, right? And acknowledging that's important, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to go ahead and say, we got to think about where we're trying to go. We can't just show up every day and see and act like it's, it's not Groundhog Day or the opposite of Groundhog Day where you have no memory of the past.
Yeah. There's a little bit of education, and then it's about objectives and risks, understanding risks and resources around all of that. Yeah. And I think as long as there's clarity and sort of consensus when you leave, you kind of
I think about Law, you mentioned it, the client, the session we just had recently with a client where I felt like the follow-up was really strong.
Great.
But I think we can do a better job of creating a stronger template for use for our folks to put in front of our clients. I think that's something that we could probably, as a takeaway, if I go back to my days as a CIO when I worked with you guys, I always felt like I had a pretty good idea of what was going on. But it's because we talked a lot. Yeah. Well, it wasn't artifact driven. It wasn't in that sense. But we talked a lot. But that put a lot of pressure on you guys from a communication perspective.
We're just really good. That's when you were working
with
us.
Y'all didn't have many clients. So
that's what he thought. So you know what? You brought something up though to highlight. It directly correlates to the level of engagement that client has with us. And so if they're engaged and they involve themselves in the conversation, they're invested in it, we all get a lot mutually. There's a partnership there.
Yeah.
Some customers don't. They don't either because maybe they're disconnected or maybe because this is new and it just feels weird to them.
Yeah.
It's like the first time you go to a doctor that actually
there's a lot of trust. We're talking about trust. Everything we've sort of said assumes a level of trust. I don't know about you, but I generally don't share our deepest, darkest business secrets with people that I don't trust, right? Sure. I'm not going to get into that kind of conversation with them.
You got to get who hasn't had that. There's a lot of people out there in our space that just frankly aren't engaged. Or they'll pretend to be engaged and go through the motions, but at the end of the day, they've got really 2 questions like, what's your budget and are you going to write me a check?
What can I sell you? What do you need?
Right.
And
so
I get take orders.
I get why customers might be a little apprehensive to really engage. Obviously, with time comes that trust and sort of development of the expectation on both parties to engage.
Yeah, and I do think for us, it's such an important component to to your point, to the relationship and to being able to. It's not just the relationship piece, which is critical, but it's the functional. It has such an important functional role for us. It is the place where we can find out what are the problems, what's really going on.
Yeah.
Not just the current problems, like what are we trying to fix right now, but also what I'll call maybe aspirational problems, or where do we want to go? Yeah. And that's how, because we're looking for clients for years, right? We spend too much time and effort on the front end and the investment to get clients to a point that this business doesn't make sense if we don't have long-term relationships. It's not transactional.
So you bring something up that's interesting. When you talk about the the kind of difference between the rank and file and the leadership that often sits within that same meeting and that planning review. The rank and file are typically worried about the here and now, the today's problems, yesterday's problems, like keeping the lights on that.
Yeah, they're the doers, right? Yeah, they're at the tip of the spear on that.
Yeah, and they're oftentimes not brought into the fold, and I think it's a shame because they've got valuable input, and it's nice for them to hear that CIO's got some of these plans that they're speaking about first they've ever heard of it. I mean, I know we've sat in meetings where they're talking about CIOs talking about cloud migration strategy, not strategies, but thoughts and aspirations to move to cloud services. And I see people who are responsible for that infrastructure hearing about that for the very first time. Right. And so to be there in the middle of that also gives you some topical kind of elements to talk about with the rank and file too, to say like, hey, you heard that, I heard that too, first for me. Let's talk about that. And so you can kind of massage that into the education. Right. There's a lot of educating that goes on from our side to and our OEM partner side to the customers. Yeah. So it's that collaboration happens in those settings.
I think that's one of the greatest things that can happen in one of those meetings is for, you said this earlier, when people are disconnected because they're running their days and they all have their day jobs to do things, rarely does that vision get cascaded down, right? For people to really understand what's going on. And that CIO might have a ton of things in his or her head that they've got plans with that haven't been communicated because they're still conceptual. Yeah. And then they sit down and we have that meeting and higher ranking, resources are involved and it's the picture gets painted and you're right in the middle of it. Correct. And
it's good for everybody.
The transparency and the trust that's established when that happens with the rest is huge. Yeah. Because now, the toughest thing for us to do in anything is to come across as that we're sitting on the same side of the table as our customer. And I think when they realize that, I mean, that's what we're doing. Like we're not, I mean, the OEM plays a role, the service provider plays a role, the tools play a role, all these different things. But in a perfect world, like when we've built it right, that customer knows we're sitting right next to them. Yeah. And whether it's through negotiations, whether it's through the type of technology, what they need to buy or not buy sometimes, like when we get there, like that's when we're in a great spot.
If out of those meetings, there's 10 or 15 things that are talked about and 6 or 7 of them are things that we're involved in, the other 7 or 8 are not, like that's where, if you, having been on the client side, that's where you walk away and you feel like, these guys are part of my team. Yeah. Like they're, I know they're trying to sell me stuff. I know they got a business to run. They're trying to make money. That's fine. Just like that's no different than your employees. Your employees are trying to grow. They want to make more money. They want to
do a project.
It doesn't mean that they're on the same side of the table, but they do have some individual interests as well, right? It doesn't mean they can't still be part of the team. Yeah. And I think if we can get there, I think that's better. That's better for the client and for us, right? Because the trust factor. You're lowering the barriers to being able to get things done.
One of the things you said, hang on a second. One of the things you said earlier, and we can go, is around like the expectation that you set for your provider that's going to come in, your technology team, whatever it may be. And I would tell every business out there that they need to get transparent. Like they do.
If you don't feel like you can, you should get it.
You need to get it. That's my point. If you don't feel like you can get naked, as it relates to everything that's going on, you got the wrong guys, the wrong team in there with you. And even if that's us, like I'm not promoting us right now.
If you don't feel that way with us, then we got a problem.
Send us packing. Like we're not doing our job. Yeah. You kept referring to relationships. We're a relationship-driven organization. Right, we're not out there trying to sell every smoking Joe that there is.
We've said all the time, like
never has been.
We're not a business that's going to have, given the way we're currently structured, right, in any near term future, have thousands of customers that pay us small amounts of money. Yeah. That is not what the business is, right? It's not the model. It is a smaller number of customers that go deep, right? That's the nature. That's how this works, right? Because that's better for them and for us. So you're right. There has to be relationship and trust. If you don't have that,
and we enjoy it.
Well,
and we're at an age too,
like that's just better
that we enjoy that. Like it's
and if to your point, if the client doesn't want that, They shouldn't work with us.
We're not it.
And I honestly, they probably ought to just go in-house, because I don't know how you make an outside provider work in that environment unless, a pure vendor relationship that's adversarial.
Yeah.
How does that work? Like, I don't even know how you manage that.
Well, if you watch, it's interesting to me to see some of the education that takes place too in what I would call proper or ideal engagements like that, where you see the CIO or some director or VP level display signs of trust and transparency. I think for a lot of not to size people up, but for manager level and especially newer people within their organization, they're seeing behavior like that for the first time.
Right.
That like, oh, well, my superiors are offering transparency. Like, maybe I can get some. Like, you ran a good shop where you were very transparent, and I think people within your organization started to follow suit. Over time.
The people that work for me, if they weren't going to stay long, because I was like, we're not going to play the game that somehow we're the big dog, we know everything, and we just need solutions.
Yeah,
because we didn't know that. Like, that was, I was not going to be the emperor.
Well, we're a free resource to a degree, and we're a broker and an advocate. And so, if you're not giving me enough information to work on your behalf,
you can't do the job.
I've got a 50-50 shot at best that I'm going to get it right.
Yeah, we're handcuffed.
And so give me the information. I'm not going to leverage it against you. You've got enough transparency there.
Yeah.
That
There's nothing worse than making a bad decision on, not enough information.
Misinformation or no information. I agree.
That part's no good.
Well, our OEM partners can bring a ton to the table too, and they look to us for guidance.
Yeah, I think so. Let's wrap this up, because I feel like
we're just getting started.
Yeah, we can talk about this a while. We're getting at the heart of what we care about, right? You say we can get a refill and keep going. But I do think,
is that a plug for what?
To make it clear,
it's delicious.
Expectations are important. Bringing something to the table, both from the client side, understanding, being transparent, bringing what's the business trying to do, and not just the IT piece, but I think making sure that relating that to the business is important, right? Even if it might not seem like it, right? Because that can help us. That's tidbits of information for us. And then it's incumbent on us to ask good questions, capture that information, and share it with the client so that there's at least some sort of a roadmap, or at least it doesn't have to be, it's not direction. It's directional. It's not point to point. Maybe it's a better way of putting it, right? We know which direction we're trying to go. It may not be step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 that we map out. That is how we get there. But that, to me, I think is what makes for a successful business review. So I get to I thought about the structure of this, and originally I'd had this part of the conversation at the end, and then I decided to do it at the beginning because I thought it'd be more fun. And it was more fun, but now we get to talk about a couple things that maybe are not as much fun. So, but we've already had a little bit of bourbon, so that's
we're going to get pissed by the time.
So this part's going to be a lot of fun. So we can start.
More drunk.
Start with the exciting news that Microsoft has announced. They don't call it a price increase. I appreciate all their materials. But
I've been here for years.
Yeah, as effective April 1, if you want to have an annual term contract that you pay monthly, you have to pay 5% more for that as opposed to prepaying. Which, on the one hand, to be fair to them, right? If you were to pay something up front on your credit card and pay it out over 12 months, you're going to pay interest on that, right? You don't get that for free. But let's face it,
They're making the sausage themselves.
It's a price.
So it's not
it's
like,
a price increase.
Come on.
And they've refused to say that, which is frustrating, but also not particularly surprising. But I don't. There's not a lot to talk about here other than for our clients. I mean, I don't have any great ideas for them other than what else are you going to do except pay the additional 5%, right?
Leverage tenant detectives.
Right. We've got we've put things in place to try to help people.
People frankly don't find a lot of value.
Spend what you need, and that's it.
Yeah.
But I would like to talk a little bit about some of the frustration that we have experienced around tenant detective, and maybe we're just not doing a good job of explaining it to people. But it doesn't seem very complicated to me, and maybe this will be a catalyst to getting people to think about it a little differently. But we've really had a hard time getting people excited about the discounts that we can bring to the table through optimization, because that's really all it is. I mean, a discount is X amount minus some percentage, right? Who cares how that happens? If that happens through us being willing to give up margin, okay, great. Or if it happens because we say, you don't need to buy these things because they're not creating any value for you because nobody's using them. And so therefore that results in the same amount of savings. In my mind, I'm indifferent to that. I I don't care, right? I mean, as far as me taking the message back to my CFO, I need 10% less this year for 365 because I figured out a way to save some money. And he or she goes, cool, you can have the 10% to spend on something else then.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's because the 10% gets taken away and that's why they don't want to do it. I don't know.
Here's where I'm going to debate that. And I was there. They're okay to get 10% off the SKU. They're okay for a true 10% discount. They're just not okay with 20% or 30%, in some cases 40% optimization related savings. It's like, I'm showing you a different way to skin this thing. I mean, you have all the analytics that you need, right? You can ask as many questions as you want. We can sandbox it and POC it and all these different things, and yet they don't budge, but they will go take, a competitor coming in and going, hey, we'll give you 10% discount.
Yeah.
It's like, so at one hand I thought, okay, nobody's getting fired or nobody's getting told that their Microsoft spend's got to go down, right? So they're just like, screw it, I'm not going to mess with it. And we're talking about, as you guys know, we're talking about thousands of dollars
for larger tenants. It's real
thousands
money.
of dollars
real
a
money.
month.
This is not. It's not coins in the couch cushions.
Way more than
real
a
money.
10% SKU discount SKU is going to give you. When you start talking about 40% with somebody that's spending a couple $100,000 a month,
it's a lot.
What?
Yeah, so I kind of look at it like utilities, or it's like anything else. First of all, it's complicated. Microsoft licensing is something nobody wants to talk about, and I don't even like talking about it. I think it's stupid, like, to be frank.
I mean, I've lived it for 3.5 years, and it's
just stupid. Like,
it's difficult. It's painful.
If I walked in here and said, guess what? I can give you email, I can give you word processing, I can give you a spreadsheet, but it's going to cost you what this stuff costs. You go, get out of here. That's stupid. If there was a reasonable alternative. The bottom line is we're all habitual users of this stuff, and we're going to continue to pay what we pay for.
And they're
like
good tools.
tax.
I mean, they're good tools.
They're not bad
none of this
tools.
is about whether
are they worth what we pay for them.
That's
I don't
a different
know,
question.
right?
But that's different than.
So it's complicated, and it's assumed, like, it's like you can bitch about the price of gas or electricity, but you still pay for it because it's just there. It's part of having it, right?
But if somebody could optimize it and show you could pay 30% less, you'd do it. Would you not do it?
Not necessarily.
Really?
You can save 15% or more by buying Geico or car insurance too, but you don't use it, right? And you don't do it because you don't want to change it. You don't want to dork around with it, and you don't trust it.
Well, I think that's the last.
Yeah, because you don't trust
I
it
think
because
that's
it's
actually
complicated. You can't second guess it.
What does it mean? What do I have to do to get that 15%?
Yeah, and then there's always, well, I don't know. It's like, you know what? Just get on with something else. Talk about something else, anything else. So it's frustrating to us because we're like, I've got an answer. It'll save you money. Like, I don't have enough money. I'm like, I give you more money. It's free money. Just do what we say.
Right. So
but
I do wonder if the price increase will motivate some people to,
I don't know. I mean, we can negate the price increase. We have yet to see a tenant where there isn't at least 5% optimization savings.
100%.
At least.
Most of our clients all just renewed, right? So
correct.
This problem, we're going to find out. We're going to get a natural experiment from this because we'll find out next January, February, because the message to all of them is if you want to keep paying monthly, it's 5% more.
Because we renewed them all within that window.
Yes, before the price increase went into effect.
Don't forget, you also have this sort of compounding effect of, well, there's different ways to buy it. Maybe I can get an EA, maybe I can do some sort of a select agreement or these other things, and those are starting to go by the wayside.
Yes.
Not as many people are going to continue to have the availability of those alternate buying options, so they're going to get condensed down or funneled down into a consistent buying model, which is cloud service provider, CSP.
And I would caution people listening out there who are in larger tenants, if someone is willing to sell you this stuff at basically cost, if they're willing to sell it to you at close to 20% discount, they're selling it to you they're making no money, which means they're going to come. They're expecting to sell you something else.
Yeah.
So
right.
there's no free lunch,
or they're going to attack it next year.
There's no free lunch. So don't kid yourself that somehow that's going to they're going to expect something else. They're
and
gonna,
arguably,
whether it's support or other things.
They should decide, does my CSP do anything?
Yeah, you're not going to get any support, I promise you.
No.
At 20%.
Correct.
Or at least not consistently over term.
Yeah. I mean, why would you expect to get that, right? They're basically passing it through. So, anyway, I don't want to, like this, we all know this gets our blood boiling, so I don't really want to
I'm fired up.
I know.
I don't give a shit anymore, honestly. I stopped giving a shit about this stuff a long time ago because there's nothing. it's frustrating to the customers. It's frustrating to us. You can give people money, they won't take it, and I feel sorry for all of us because we're stuck with it.
I do feel like that the avenue is through a referral network, right? Through people that have established.
It brings
trust.
us back to trust. It always
goes back to
seems to
trust.
come back there every time.
Yeah. I mean, and we've had a hard time with people that we think trust us. Maybe they don't.
But if we do think where we had the most success with Tenant Detective and optimization, it's existing clients.
For sure.
It's ones we've already worked with.
Because it's a little scary. Like there's some changes in there, and it affects everyone.
Yes, it does. I mean, these are critical services. If your email doesn't work, it's like a P1 outage, right? I mean, that's a problem.
And these are these are the gateway drugs to the problems that customers have around phishing and everything else. I mean, these are highly used,
they matter.
highly engaged tools.
I'm not minimizing that.
Yeah, I get that.
You know what? Also, you think about our industry, and anytime there's a change, like, you think of like telco. Like there's a circuit that goes away for a new circuit to come up. Mm-hmm. There's IPs that change. Like I feel like sometimes the thought is like there's risk here.
Ripple.
There's risk in this turn up, turn down, even for this 15%. I don't need anybody barking at me. I don't need anybody coming in and not being able to access email. It's my ass that's on the line. Yeah, screw the 15%.
Again, IT generally tries to stay out of the news inside a company, right? And
so why would
this is a great way to get in the news, right? Maybe it's not worth it in terms of your calculus.
Here's the thing, though. When you think about go ahead.
We need a whole cut the shit episode on reaching out to getting 5 minutes with and asking them, like, maybe not even in here, but just get as many as we can into a Teams meeting and just have this conversation. I would love to understand the thought process around it.
We've paid a marketing team, not our internal team, but an external team to try to sort this out too, and it doesn't make any sense. I mean, here's the thing. If you look at the proportionate spend of the expense associated with the Microsoft Office suite. I'm not talking about Azure. Like it's got its own thing. The Microsoft Office suite and how much money of your IT expense is going into that. Nobody's even talking about whether you're getting good use out of it.
No, I mean, that's
it's a tax.
If you remember, that's how this whole thing started. We're like, are people using this stuff? I mean, that's kind of how the whole thing.
And are they using
the whole thing
right?
started?
Are they getting something out of it? Is it?
They're not, by the way. They're not using it.
Microsoft's got a list of 1,000 features and why they're like God's gift to technologists.
Well, and bundling almost always. We know bundling leads to inefficiency, right? I mean, go back to cable bundles or whatever they are, right? It doesn't mean bundles are bad, but it does mean if you can figure out a way to systematically unbundle. At least at the margins,
that's easy.
You should, right? I mean, that even if it does create some friction and some potential switching costs associated with it. Anyway, let's stay on the train.
I said you don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. Yeah. I'm done with it.
I do want to talk about. We'll talk a little bit about Copilot, but it's broader than that because this. I mean, since we're on the Microsoft train, right? I mean, anybody who pays any attention will tell you, Copilot is their normal. I mean, it has become. It's all they talk about.
Yep.
If you go to a conference and there's a Microsoft booth, it's not a Microsoft booth. It's a Copilot booth. I mean, if you watch Satya talk, he talks about
gone all in.
Right? They've. I mean, I get it.
He's doing well.
It's a big company, but they have spent. I mean, they spent a lot of money on OpenAI. They've made a big bet on this.
Get ice?
I don't need ice.
You want to eat?
and
we're talking about Microsoft. Screw it.
The reality.
Woodford.
At this point, it's early. I mean, this is a 9-inning game, and we're in inning 1 or 2. So I'm not predicting the death of Copilot or anything like that. I'm saying,
of course not.
I don't think it has gone.
Let me tell you. You say.
I don't think adoption has gone as swiftly. That's good. As swiftly.
Do you think
as
that's
Microsoft.
A cost thing?
Do I think it's a cost to them?
Woodford would
well, I think
no. I love Woodford.
Do you think Woodford would do this?
Possibly.
You care about Woodford, don't you?
I do care about Woodford a lot.
Are we trying to? I mean, we're going to sell sponsorship.
Maybe.
I appreciate that.
LeBron Graham Distillery.
Chief Revenue Officer, folks. Chief Revenue Officer right here. Always thinking.
And then every now and then
always
you just chase it down with a little.
Water. We're looking for sponsorship, guys.
This shit.
I mean, we got all this new furniture and decor. We got to pay for this shit some kind of way.
Sorry, I'll put that up.
There's fancy new lights here, guys. Y'all can't see that, but there's some. I mean, it's big time up here. We're not messing around.
So, do you feel like the let's just call a spade a spade. Copilot hasn't exactly been adopted the way I think they thought it would have been adopted.
I don't think it has. I think they thought.
We've got how many?
Got some data.
You've got some data, don't you?
I do have some data.
Nick has data.
I want to start with. There's a little bit of media coverage, and we'll make sure I'll send these to Emily so she can put them in the show notes. But there's been some, I'll call it unfavorable media coverage, and maybe not unfavorable, but people have documented. It's a little tricky to figure out, but Microsoft is not breaking out Copilot revenue in its 365. And generally, in their annual report, they do a pretty detailed breakdown of what their cloud service is.
Do you believe that's a hide the hot dog tactic?
I do. I don't think it's what they thought it was. And there's been some real criticism of the pricing that they came out with. A lot of people feel like $30 per month per user is too expensive because of
it's more than the entire Office suite for most people.
And that's the argument is that, and it's an uncertain price to value ratio. People don't know this is a tool, right? I mean, Copilot is it's not like Excel. I mean, it is like Excel when Excel first came out. Because when Excel first came out, people didn't know what to do with it. I mean, if you opened up Excel or go back to Lotus 123 back in the day and you saw a spreadsheet, even if you worked in ledgers or other things, you were a financial person, you didn't know what to do with that. It was literally a blank page with a bunch of squares on it. Like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? And now we
still that to me.
Well, Brian still thinks that. But we all know what that's for, right? And we understand like the power of what, because it is a tool.
And I think
Copilot, that's what the Microsoft folks see Copilot as. It's like that. But the rest of the world, they're like, well, I don't exactly know what I'm supposed to do. Because I asked you today, I said, how do you use it? And you gave me a couple of things, and I was kind of like, I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, well, that sounds like, it sounds a little bit helpful.
It was somewhat of a novelty in the beginning for most folks.
Yeah, but I'm not real sure. Like, it's certainly not, if it got turned off, you're like, oh, shit, my world is over.
Get on with it. Right?
If your Excel turns off,
I have a problem.
You got a problem,
that's
right?
I have a bit of an addiction.
And I think that's what they... And I think ultimately Copilot may be that, but it's not there yet. And so the criticism has been around that, where it's the adoption, and I'll use our own. I went and looked up our own ecosystem from a CSP perspective. We've got 30 something clients that are on our CSP platform, and they're pretty large. We have 37,000 licenses, right? We're at almost 40,000 licenses. It's a pretty big operation. Do you know how many Copilot licenses we have from that group of customers?
Me.
How many, Brian?
Hundreds.
37.
Close, 36. Damn. And we only have one client out of our entire universe of clients who's buying more than, that's in double digits. They have 14.
See, if I'm a Microsoft person listening
the ones
to
that
this,
are buying it have bought like 3.
That's a miss.
See, if I'm a Microsoft person listening to this, I'm thinking, you guys don't know what the hell you're doing. You can't sell it. Now,
maybe they're right. Maybe they're right.
Could be right.
Why didn't they embed it in the
Yeah.
E5 or the
Dope deal.
Or just give
for 6 months,
$5,
and then come out and
it's
go,
a simple add-on.
It's 30 now or 20 now.
So,
or whatever.
so here's the thing. I find the use. So keep in mind, it's generative AI. That's what it is. It's not agentive. It's not. It's not. It's at the tip of the spear, right?
It's a tool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all it is.
Habitually, I find younger people tend to leverage AI more than people that are set in their ways. So you got to change behavior in order to embrace it.
Which generally takes time.
It takes a while.
Particularly in larger organizations.
Yeah, so,
it doesn't mean you won't have early adopters, but
seeding it is probably a good idea. And I'm sure somebody's listening going, that's why we're doing EAs, and that's why we're giving it away, whatever. So, but once you do start to use it, will the masses within an organization, if I've got 4,000 users, will 4,000 users find $30 a month of productivity out of AI? I doubt it, right?
Well, maybe. I mean, because when you frame it like that, I mean, if you've got people let's say your average employee makes $60,000 a year. Well, that's $30 an hour.
Right. 1 hour of savings a month.
Can they get 1 hour of savings a month?
Yeah.
That's actually a pretty low.
I strongly suspect they can.
I actually think that's where Microsoft got their math from.
Yeah.
I think that's where it came from. It's like $30 is nothing.
You're
but
right.
I'm like, but you have to look at there's no such thing as absolute pricing. There's only relative pricing. To your point, the first thing you said was it costs more to get Copilot, which is an add-on to my E3, which is everything. It's spreadsheets, it's email, it's Teams, it's all of this shit.
Stuff
and that's
I know
$25, and this is 30.
Yeah.
So it has to deliver even more value than that does, which we know delivers way more than $25 a month in value. So that's their problem. They've got this this imbalance between value creation,
perceived economics.
100%
perceived value.
There is no absolute economics. It's only relative.
Right. I think the tool set itself is look, it's great. I mean, when I do use it, I'm always blown away. Like
the teams, when we run the team summaries and the note, I mean, it's amazing. Like
efficiency, and
none of this is a criticism of its capabilities. Yeah. It's more about how
they've done a good job,
how it got delivered.
Yeah, I agree.
And sort of the business model.
I think it's a miss,
and I think that's where
they blew that,
because none of these articles that I'll share. None of them are like, oh, Copilot sucks. It's not that at all.
It's a good technology.
It's not that at all. The only one that's interesting is there's an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal about this guy saying you don't need an AI strategy. He's like, because all he's trying to, it's a little bit of a provocative title, but what he's really trying to say is there's no such thing as AI strategy as a starting point. What's your technology strategy? Because AI is just part of that. And his argument is, coming out of the gate and trying to think about AI, if you haven't thought about your data structure, like what's your data, because AI doesn't work without good data, right? I mean, if your data inside your environment is a mess, well, AI is not going to do much for you. If you've got poor controls around you're going to have security problems. So his argument is, before you decide you need an AI strategy, you better take a step back, do a business review with your IT provider and see where you are from.
Even the IT providers don't know what the hell they're doing with this stuff, though, and that's what's crazy.
But I'm saying, like, even abstracting away from that, saying, like, what are you doing from a data hierarchy? What's your control process look like around how you're organizing your information? But that's not something. I mean, in many ways, that hasn't always been IT's purview, right? Now we're sort of bumping into IT as a group as opposed to being embedded inside a business.
It is one of the products, though, the few products that Microsoft as a provider offers you that is, it's like going to Home Depot to find a place to live. They sell stuff. They sell, boards and nails and everything else. You can make a house out of it, but predominantly everything Microsoft makes is a tool, right? It's a thing. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't provide a valuable service.
It has potential.
Correct. It's wrapped up in potential, and it provides partners to, the ecosystem of partners to build it in, make it something, make it valuable. The generative AI componentry that exists within Copilot can be leveraged to do something out of the gate. So therefore, it's probably the fastest, the product that you can most realistically find executable value out of, like, just off the shelf. But you got to use it.
And you got to know how to use it.
Right? You got to use it. And most people aren't getting exposed to it because most people don't want to pay $30
I think to your point,
pop.
if Microsoft were here, they'd say, that's y'all's job.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be helping people figure that out. And
maybe we're not disagree.
Maybe we're not doing a good job there. I mean, that's very well a takeaway for us to think about as to how to do it.
And they're not the only game in town.
That's true. They're not Excel.
Right.
This isn't Excel.
Yeah, they don't have
Claude,
quite the lock on the market there.
There's a bunch of them out there.
You got cheap ones that are down and dirty and do a pretty good job. You got
Grok. You've got a variety. I mean, there's some good ones out there.
Yep.
It's an interesting,
for sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting ecosystem for sure. All right, guys. I think that's enough for today. We've managed to have a nice drink. We didn't get too upset with the Microsoft stuff. So
Cameron doesn't give a shit about it.
I don't give a shit about it. I really don't give a shit.
That should be the takeaway.
Here's the takeaway.
I can buy you books.
Honey Badger.
You eat the pages, whatever. Like,
He's a Honey Badger. Hey, I was just wondering, do you think, did my on-clouds take up too much of the camera, do you think? At any point?
I mean, it looks like the way you have it right there,
white.
It looks like shacks on
yeah,
clouds.
it's awfully
even though I know
white.
it's like a size 11 and a half.
Yeah, 12s.
12s. Okay.
Yeah, I just wondered if the on-clouds were taking up too much of the space.
I mean, we've got 3 solid sponsorship opportunities.
It really does look a little ski-like.
I'm feeling good about how we're going. All right, guys. Until next time.
Link.
I really enjoyed the shit out of this.
Yeah, this is great. Always.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you are enjoying the podcast, we'd appreciate it if you would become a subscriber wherever you get your podcasts. And if you could rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, that would really help us out. Or you can just go old school and tell your friends, your family, your colleagues, and hell, anybody else who you think might want to hear something like this to listen in. If you're on social media, make sure to follow us on TikTok @CutTheShitPod, all one word, where we post lots of clips from the podcast. And last but not least, you can also watch the YouTube version of the show on our YouTube channel, @Plow Networks. Until next time, take care and have a great day.